indubitable. And whether I am awake or asleep, 2 and 3 added together are 5, and a square has no more than 4 sides. It seems impossible that such transparent truths could incur any suspicion of being false. Okay, so the first answer for whether or not we're dreaming is not that we are definitely not in a dream, but instead that even if this is a dream, there are certain things that are nevertheless indubitable. For example, it is impossible even in a dream for 1 plus 1 to equal 3. A very interesting observation, very important observation. Right? That even in a dream where you are able to imagine an entire world, a complete fantasy, none of which is true or real, even in that situation, there are certain things that are immutable and indubitable and which cannot change, that your brain does not have the power to change. For example, arithmetic. He says arithmetic, geometry, and other subjects of this kind with the simplest and most general things, right? So a dream cannot make a square have 3 sides. There will still always be a distinction between a square and a triangle in a dream. And the same is true of arithmetic. So the fact that in both dreams and reality, these basic, simple mathematical and geometrical truths are consistent and indubitable is good evidence that at least those things are certain. So I'll repeat this, right? A reasonable conclusion of this might be that physics, astronomy, medicine, and all other disciplines which depend on the study of composite things are doubtful, while simple things are true, right? So I can dream that the solar system is different. I can dream that the laws of physics are different. I can dream that I can fly. I can dream that there would be no gravity. I can dream all sorts of things like that that would break or bend the laws of physics. And for Descartes, that means those things are less dubious, less certain, more dubious. He says they're more dubious because they deal with composite things. Right? The solar system is a collection of things, many things. And I can imagine all those many things in a different configuration. But I can't doubt, even in a dream, are these simple, fundamental, mathematical truths. So, have we found then some certainty? He says, no, not quite. And he offers another argument to increase the level of doubt even more, to advance the project of radical doubt. And this is where he gets into dangerous territory for his time. He says, right after that section I read on 78, and yet firmly rooted in my mind is the long-standing belief that there is an omnipotent God who made me the kind of creature that I am. How do I know that he has not brought it about? There is no earth, no sky, no extended thing, no shape, no size, no place. God is all-powerful. God could do anything he likes, and therefore God could be deceiving me about all these things. God could conceivably deceive me that 1 plus 1 equals 2, that a triangle has 3 sides, that the angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. All of the simple mathematical truths Descartes posits could be projected onto me, given to me by God as an illusion. However, the reason to not think that is because God is good. To St. Plotinus, right, everything that comes from God is by necessity good. And so, right, Descartes says, we can't assume that God would do this. That goes against our understanding of God, the definition of God. He says on page 79 then, moving ahead, I will suppose, therefore, that not God, who is supremely good and the source of truth, but rather some malicious demon of the utmost power and cunning has employed all his energies in order to deceive me. And I shall think that the sky, the earth, the air, colors, shapes, sounds, and all external things are merely the delusions of dreams which he has devised to ensnare my judgment. Not God, but a malicious demon. And often this argument is called the argument from the evil deceiver. Now, already Descartes is in heretical territory, right? He's challenging, he's just bringing up the idea that God could be a deceiver. He rejects that idea. God is not a deceiver. But then he raises this other spectacle, this other possibility. Maybe instead of a God, there is a malicious demon, an evil deceiver, who is, right, we can think of this as, the evil deceiver is Wario to God's Mario. The evil version, an omnipotent force which is entirely evil, and every experience and truth and idea that I have that comes from it would be false. So, right, for writing this book, Descartes gets in a lot of trouble, has to flee France. He goes to Holland, moves to Amsterdam, where there's more freedom of speech, freedom of thought, and is a more sort of liberal, progressive society. And we can see why, right? I mean, this is calling into question not just Christian theology, Christian doctrine, but is positing the possibility of an evil God that would deceive us about everything. Now, if this evil God is capable of deceiving us even about those most simple mathematical truths, 1 plus 1 equals 2, then we're really in trouble, right? Because then I can have no certainty about anything. Okay, so Descartes has shown in the first meditation that with a little bit of meditation, a little bit of thinking, we can come up with a reason to doubt literally everything. Every sensory idea, every received idea that we get from our teachers and our tradition, and even the most basic intuitive mathematical logical truths might be illusion implanted in our brains by this evil deceiver. It's possible. And if it's possible, then Descartes has already said, I have to count them as false. So these three arguments, the argument from madness, the argument from dreams, and the argument from the evil deceiver, lead Descartes to the complete demolition of all of his opinions, all of his knowledge. He's beginning completely fresh. There's a phrase that we'll talk about more in the coming weeks, which is the tabula rasa, the idea of being a blank slate. And this is exactly what Descartes is trying to achieve. He's trying to turn himself into a blank slate, to remove any influence from false ideas, from uncertain ideas. This lands Descartes as we begin the second meditation on page 80, in an experience of what can only be called nihilism. And nihilism, we will also have an opportunity to talk more about as the semester progresses. Nihilism is the belief in nothing. Now, we'll see a couple different ways to think about nihilism, but Descartes here has in mind, or Descartes is experiencing the most common conception of nihilism, which is there is nothing true. There is nothing to believe in. There are no absolute truths. There are no truths, period. So I think it's really important to recognize that modernity and the attempt to ground the sciences in an absolute truth begins with a kind of nihilism and must work through nihilism in order to achieve this foundation, in order to achieve certainty. In order to achieve certainty, you have to go through nihilism. That is a kind of modernist article of faith, again. And it's important to recognize here that nihilism is at the heart of modern philosophy. Right? Descartes invites nihilism. He cultivates nihilism. And it is from out of this nihilism and by grappling with this nihilism that he's able to come to a new foundation for philosophy. So he says at the beginning of second meditation, so serious are the doubts into which I have been thrown as a result of yesterday's meditation that I can neither put them out of my mind nor see any way of resolving them. It feels as if I have fallen unexpectedly into a deep whirlpool, which tumbles me around so that I can neither stand on the bottom nor swim up to the top. Right? Nevertheless, I will make an effort and once more attempt the same path which I started yesterday. Anything which admits of the slightest doubt, I will set aside just as if I had found it to be wholly false. I will proceed in this way until I recognize something certain, or if nothing else, until I at least recognize for certain that there is no certainty. Another very interesting moment, right? This is a profoundly modern thought. You don't hear Aristotle talking about this. You don't hear Plato talking about this. You don't hear Plotinus talking about this. Augustine talks about it maybe a little bit more, but right, possibility that the only thing that is certain is that nothing is certain. What is this? This is a confrontation with a really virile irony. The only truth is that there is no truth. It's kind of a liar's paradox, right? Where I say everything I say is a lie. Well, if what I just said is true, that everything I say is a lie, then that very statement, everything I say is a lie, is a lie. And therefore, everything I say is not a lie. If I say everything I say is a lie, and that's true, then it's also false, right? Everything I say is a lie. And if that's true, then the statement, everything I say is a lie, is false. I want to try and explain that to you a little bit better on Blackboard, but hopefully you can see the flavor of that, right? If everything I say is a lie, then the claim that all of my lies, right? If it's true that everything I say is a lie, then the claim that all of my statements are lies is also a lie, which means that not everything I say is a lie, which means that it might be true, right? We get caught in this vicious circle. Yeah. It's an interesting exercise in thought. So he says, continuing, this is still first paragraph on page 80. Archimedes used to demand just one firm point, and one firm and immovable point in order to shift the entire earth. So I too can hope for great things if I manage to find just one thing, however slight, that is certain and unshakable. Right? This is an Archimedean point. Archimedes was a classical philosopher. We might point out that Descartes has maybe not completely rid himself of all of his former opinions if he's referencing and relying on this classical philosopher. It's not really that important. The idea here is Archimedes says, show me one fixed point and I can move the earth. What he means is, if I have one certain piece of information, one thing that is indubitably true, then based on that one piece of information, I can decide whether or not everything else surrounding it is true or false. Based on one truth, I can deduce all other truths, and I can discern all falsehoods. So Descartes is saying, I'm so lost, I don't know up and down, I'm disoriented, I'm in the depths of nihilism. If I can just find one true thing, then I can begin to rebuild my knowledge, my understanding of the world. I can rebuild this edifice that's fallen in the wake of Copernicus and modernity. So he says, yet apart from everything I've just listed, how do I know that there is not something else which does not allow even the slightest occasion for doubt? Is there not a God, or or whatever I may call him, who puts into me the thoughts I am now having? But why do I think this, since I myself may perhaps be the author of these thoughts? This is the first moment where Descartes gets into a tricky place that we'll talk about more. That it's difficult to know, difficult for Descartes in this experience of radical doubt to differentiate himself from God. I'll say more about that next class. So, I may think that God is giving me ideas, I may think that God is providing me with this experience, but how do I know I'm not doing it myself, that I am the author of my own existence? How do I know that I haven't created this illusion for myself? So he goes on. This is the sticking point. Am I not so bound up with the body and with senses that I cannot exist without them? Can I leave behind my body and all sensory knowledge and all this received knowledge and exist without them? But I've convinced myself that there is absolutely nothing in the world, no sky, no earth, no minds, no bodies. Does it now follow that I too do not exist? Having demolished all of my opinions about